We've got some new details for you this morning on how things will play out in the first presidential debate next Thursday here on CNN. The Biden campaign chose the winning side of a coin toss and got to pick the right side podium. Donald Trump's campaign chose to get the final word of the debate. It comes as we get some new numbers on how much both sides raised last month. Trump took in a staggering $141 million. Biden and the Democratic Party fell well short of that, even though they raised more than $85 million last month. Joining me now, former Trump administration official Matt Mowers and former White House deputy assistant to President Bill Clinton, Matt Bennett. We've got double Matts today, so I will try to keep you fellas straight. First, the latest polling here, we talk about these hauls that both of the candidates have brought in, but the latest polling is the economy is the top spot for concerns for Americans. Matt Bennett, to you, when people hear that each candidate is bringing in this huge amount of money, some of it, or a good deal of it, from billionaires, while the American public is struggling with finances due to high prices, can this help a campaign? Obviously, the money will, but could it hurt them in the public eye?
It's possible that it could. I mean, look, the Trump campaign just brought in $50 million from Tim Mellon, a guy that, by the way, has also given $25 million to RFK Jr. in a very cynical attempt to use RFK to help Trump. And it is kind of gross when those kinds of numbers are tossed around. But look, both sides do it, and Americans know that. I think the important thing to keep in mind about these numbers, though, is that in modern presidential elections, nobody loses because they didn't have as much money as the other guy. The people living in swing states will be pounded into submission by ads from both campaigns. There is a point of diminishing returns. So I never thought that this race would be decided by the money. It was always clear that it was going to be basically tied in the money race, and that's what we're seeing.
Matt Mowers, what do you think it says that Donald Trump was able to get this huge boost after his conviction?
Well, look, it shows that the conviction served to energize his base. And you certainly saw that not just from the folks who've been giving him $10, $20, $25 every month for years now, but even from a lot of folks who were really on the cusp of whether they were going to support Donald Trump or not earlier this year. I mean, just anecdotally, I've heard from folks who are reluctant to support Donald Trump again, who are kicking in donations in those 24, 48 hours after conviction because they felt that Alvin Bragg was in the search of the person, not in the search of a crime. And they thought it was unfair and unjust in our system. So it did serve to energize many folks in the Republican Party. And you're seeing that Donald Trump's been able to capitalize off of that. To your earlier point, I agree that, it can be a challenge if you have the support of too many of the millionaire and billionaire class. And that's why I find it really confusing why President Biden continues to have these kind of glitzy fundraising appearances, whether it's with President Obama or the one they did with President Clinton and President Obama, where they're having media, where they have a room full of celebrities. It just shows that how out of touch they can be with where folks feel like they are right now. If you ask folks about their perceptions of the economy, despite what the economic statistics say, and I know I'm sure Matt and others will try to say, well, the number, unemployment remains low and the rest of it. It's all about inflation. And that directly corresponds to how people feel about the economy. And right now, if you look at every poll, more Americans feel like they're falling behind in the economy than they're getting ahead. As long as that remains the case, it's going to be a challenge for Joe Biden. And if he's out there doing continued glitzy fundraisers, I think it's going to continue to show him to be out of touch.
All right, Matt Bowers, I want to talk to you about another big issue for Americans, and that's immigration. We've seen that over and over in the polls as well. Biden has made his latest move to give the undocumented spouses married to U.S. citizens the ability to become legal citizens. Now Donald Trump has said this about his plans. Listen in.
What I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges, too.
All right. So, Matt Bennett, this is a person who has consistently called undocumented immigrants invaders, criminals. Why do you think he's making this shift now?
Well, I think he's under pressure from his friends in the tech industry who really desperately need people with advanced degrees, and the unemployment rate is so low, we're basically at full employment, it's very hard to fill a lot of jobs. So I think he's hearing that from some of his big donors. But I don't think anyone should be fooled by this. This is a guy who has promised to set up deportation camps. He asked about whether we could shoot people coming across the border when he was a president of the United States. This is somebody who is separated families at the border, and talked about people coming from countries that are non-white in just the most disgusting, vulgar terms. So this is maybe one little twist. It's a thing he adopted from Hillary Clinton, ironically enough, but it is not enough to change what his fundamental policies have been on immigration all along.
All right, Matt Mowers, Trump is going to get the last word due to the coin toss here as we wait for this presidential debate this coming up Thursday. There is an obvious advantage, but is there a disadvantage as well?
Well, look, you know, anyone knows Donald Trump knows he's always looking to get the last word. So can't say I'm too surprised that they chose to take that. And look, I think as long as he keeps it focused on the issues, and I'll tell you, talking about giving green cards to those who have gotten degrees here in our education system is an example of policies he's now putting out. You know, we're often asked, you know, is Trump all rhetoric and not enough policy? He's actually continued to lean in putting in new policies. As long as he focuses on that next week, as long as he keeps the focus about the record under Joe Biden versus the record under Donald Trump, how Americans were feeling about the economy and safety and security, he has a great chance next week. So as long as he doesn't deviate in anything that has to do with personal grievance, I think he's going to do quite well next week.
I just want to remind people that this time the mics will be muted when the person that is not being asked the question isn't allowed to speak. I want to show you what happened in one of the presidential debates that probably pushed this forward. Listen.
Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't wanna
you're a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a lot of
is the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is your,
up, man?
Listen, who is
We all remember the "Will you shut up, man." This debate will be different. Who do you think is going to benefit the most, Matt Bennett, from the new rules?
Well, I think probably Biden, because he won't be having to contend with what we just saw from Trump. And remember, in 2016, Trump stalked around the stage behind Hillary Clinton. He does not behave himself at these debates. And so I think it was vital that CNN make them agree that they could cut off the mics, because otherwise you're just going to have the cacophony that we saw in that first debate last time. I do think, though, that this debate will be very important because it will be an opportunity for Americans to look at both of these guys who they know very well. It's a current and former president, and size them up. I think Matt is dreaming if he thinks that Donald Trump is going to keep this on the issues and not make this about personal grievance. That has never happened before in the history of Trump's political career. It ain't going to happen this time either.
Matt Bennett, Matt Mowers, I'm giving you the last word, Matt Bennett. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, you can join CNN as President